this thought that like the less defined the threat that someone wants to save the world from, the more likely that there's some weird, creepy, crazy asshole.
Yeah, and we see that with the evolution of environmentalism, right? Like at first, environmentalism back in the early 20th century, environmentalism, the beginning of the Sierra Club and that sort of stuff, had very specific goals. It was like, we're literally driving all of these indigenous American species to extinction because we're letting people hunt and we're just kind of letting people develop wilderness all willy nilly. And they're killing these creatures that can't be replaced and are actually really beautiful. And we've already lost a couple, so let's try and avoid losing the rest. And let's find ways to make places and preserves where these creatures can still live. Let's slow down and just raping nature so that we can really enjoy our forests, our green fields, our clean streams for as long as possible. Because our children deserve to live in a world that is healthy and has biodiversity and all this other stuff. And then by around the 50s and 60s, it started to shift into, yes, another specific cause, but the complaints were very nebulous, nuclear energy. And then as we got into the 70s and 80s, that continued, but then it became about the specifics of littering. And it's like, okay, this is actually a good cause, but we're hearing a lot of nebulous stuff, and we're not getting a lot of solutions. We're just getting people providing commercials about a crying Indian walking along the side of the road as people throw trash out their window. And then that evolved into the most recent thing, which is, of course, global warming, which then was first global cooling, then global warming, and now just called climate change. And it's like, well, this is very nebulous. It's not super well defined, and you don't have any solutions other than we have to abandon all of our technology now.
I ended up, getting down to a conversation that you and I have had on more than one occasion, that these people think the only reason that they can't solve this nebulous problem that they've not really defined is that they don't have enough power.
Yeah, it's pure peak liberalism. It's that the issue can start out very well defined when the liberals are trying to gain power. And then when they get power and they can't address that core issue, they then go, oh, well, we were really trying to solve this broader issue, which includes this thing, but is really caused by X, Y, and Z. And X, Y, and Z are less well defined. And then they start trying to go after those, and they may have some success, but success can be hard to measure when you don't have a very clear goal-oriented mindset. And it's like, oh, well, we're just gonna keep trying to combat these things, and eventually we'll overcome them. And in order to do that, we need more power, and it just continues this loop where it's like, oh, well, we're acquiring power for the sake of trying to address these things that can't actually be addressed because our worldview is shit. We literally got power and have absolutely no ability to properly wield it, because if we were wielding it properly, we wouldn't actually be trying to do the things we're trying to do with it. Because the things ultimately that we're trying to overturn and trying to destroy and undermine, eventually it comes to the point where it's like, oh no, we literally just have to annihilate human nature. We have to completely warp and destroy reality itself in order to make this work. It's like, well, a creature can live without orienting itself to the world around it for a certain amount of time, but then eventually the creature dies because the warping effects of its own psyche prevent it from survival any further.
My dad used to tell me that a person can ignore reality, but they can't ignore the effects of reality.